the road. Munia, how are you?
I'm okay, Gugu. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let me give you the floor to maybe just introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Okay, I'm Munya. I'm agronomist and a farmer as well. I work with Sakata Seed, Southern Africa. Um, I work from Zimbabwe and Lanseria. So most of the times I'm working from Zimbabwe, and the other times I'll be in Lanseria. So I work between South Africa and Zim, but most of the time I'm based in Zimbabwe, doing production as well as extension support to our farmers. I do with a lot of commercial farmers, commercial horticulture farmers in particular.
Thank you so much, Munia. I think we should get the show on the road, and our farmers will tag along. Hopefully, as soon as their network s- comes along. Um, so, Munia, I'll just start with you. Please tell us about butternut. You know, you said you work with seeds and stuff like that. In terms of me wanting to plant butternut, what kind of seeds do I need to buy?
Okay, so maybe I'll just give a brief background about butternuts. Butternuts, they fall under the family of cucurbits. They are the same. They're in the same family with watermelons, cucumbers, and butternuts can be grown anywhere in the world. They just need a warm temperature of about 18 to 25 degrees to grow well. I can see Rodney has just joined us. So
Hi, Rodney. Rodney, are you with us?
I'm on a phone call.
Hello,
What am I, Breeze, man?
okay,
Rodney.
so maybe I can continue. Rodney is struggling to join us. So in general, butternuts they require warm temperatures for them to perform very well. So in terms of seeds, like you were asking, we have two main types. There is OPV and hybrid seed. So OPV, the most common one is Waltham. Waltham is grown anywhere in the world. It's as the most common butternut variety on the international market. Then from Sakata, we have a range of butternut, but Pluto is the best market seller, and it's a best performer as well. So we have a range. I'll discuss as we go. But Pluto and Rotham are the two main varieties that sell on the international market.
Thank you so much, Munia, for that. Tinashe, Rodney, are you with us? Rodney? Okay, guys, this is what happens on farm spaces. I'm sure you guys are used to this by now. For those who are joining us, the farmers are on farms, therefore, network sometimes does get tricky, but we will move right along. Munia, you were speaking about a hybrid and open pollinated seeds. What is the difference? Because I know that most people, it's kind of like a joke, you know, in the farming community. People are like, open pollinated seeds are for our grannies. So, what's the difference between the two?
The major difference is about disease resistance and should I say uniformity. So in most cases, when we are growing any variety, OPVs they come in different shapes and different sizes, but most hybrid varieties they come with a certain size and weight. So in most cases, if we are looking at a variety like Pluto, it ranges between 800 grams to 1.2 kgs from from a one fruit set. So in general, most of these fruit sets they fall under that category. But when you're dealing with Waltham, in open pollinated variety, you can get as big as 1 kg and as small as 200 grams. So there is a big variation in between in terms of sizes. So you cannot actually determine your yield. Your yield can be low, can be very high, can be intermediate. But most cases, most hybrid varieties they are high yielding. So when you get a certain variety, when it says it's yielding between 800 grams to 1.2 in hybrid, those are the results that you get when you try them. But in most cases, when you do OPV, you have all types of butternuts that can come by, from the small to very large. So sometimes they can be very, very large. They can go up to 2 kgs if you do a good feeding program. Then as well, when it comes to disease resistance packages, most butternuts, they are susceptible to mildews. So there are all types of mildews when doing cucurbits. But powdery mildew is the biggest problem. So when you're dealing with hybrid varieties, they fight things like powdery mildew and downy mildew. So those are the major diseases that will bring down the farmer from getting what he or she expects to get from a certain production scale. So uh, hybrids, they are good for yield, then uniformity and disease resistance compared to OPV.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for clearing that out to us. So you mentioned that we need to be getting hybrid seeds, and when it comes to the best variety that we can get at maybe even Sakata, we need to be looking for Pluto.
Yes, in general, when you're getting hybrids, it means you're someone who's serious about farming and you want to go commercial. So when you want to go commercial, you need to have the standard market sizes that is desired by the consumer. Consumers have things that we call consumer preference. So whenever you grow something, you are targeting it to sell to the greater part of the population. So you consider the elite, you consider the middle class, you will consider the lowest class. Everyone has to 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 enjoy the quality that you produce. So in that regard, you need to come up with the best quality that you can produce, something very attractive to the consumer. So it's not about just going to the field and growing. You need to get the best out of the possible that you can get from your food. So in most cases, when you are buying your seed, you need to understand the food sizes and the market requirement for the production line. So you don't just grow for the sake of growing butternut, but you need to understand what the consumer wants before you buy.
Thank you so much for clearing that one out for us, Munia. Okay, now that we know what kind of marketable seeds to buy, let's talk about planting. You're saying that we always need to plant butternuts when it's in which season?
In the warmer season, when we get favorable temperatures between 18 to 25. Those are the minimum requirements for you to get a good germination. So germination is dependent on the soil temperature and the atmospheric temperature. So your soil temperature has to range between 20 to 25 20 to 25 degrees, then the least being 18. So the range has to start from 20 to 25 for best results. Then if you're coming in earlier, you expect to have a temperature which ranges the lowest being 18. So your temperature range has to start from 18 to 25. Those are the ranges for your planting.
Okay, thank you so much, Munia. Let's check on Tinashe if he's here with us. Hi, Rodney. Rodney, are you here with us? All right, guys. I see our speaker is here. Mr. Arthur is on the space. He's trying to join to become a speaker. However, network is a problem, guys. So don't think our speakers didn't want to show up. They are here. But in the meantime, we really thank Munya for carrying the show for us. Munya, we back to you on this one. So tell us about planting. So when we start to plant our butternut seeds,
Hello.
hi Rodney, are you here?
Yes, I am. How are you?
We good. Thank you so much. Do you want to do a quick introduction before I ask you this question?
my name is Tinashe Rodney. I'm an agronomist in Zimbabwe, and I would like to say I've had quite an interesting journey when it comes to growing of these cucurbits. I think that will be all.
Okay, so please tell us about in terms of planting and the spacing between the plants when we're planting the butternut. Could you just maybe shed some light on that? Okay, Rodney is going through some technical difficulties, guys. Munia, please take this one. Tell us about the spacing.
Yeah, I think Rodney is back.
Ale.
Hi, Rodney.
Yes, I'm back.
Perfect. I was asking you about the spacing.
Okay, so I would say there's not really a spacing that we can say is standard, but research has shown that butternut performs well uh, with populations between 10,000 and 16,000 plants per hectare. So when we did our butternut, we used two different spacing. The first one was 1.5 meters interval, that is between the lines. Then we used 50 centimeters from plant to plant. After realizing that the space was a bit too much, we had to readjust our interval from 1.5 to 1.2. But this had a problem of limiting the spaces now between lines where people need to use when they are spraying, when they are weeding, when they are doing any other activity that needs to be done in the field. So eventually, we had to come up with a strategy whereby you use 1.5 on this line, then the next one you use 1.2, the next one you use 1.5, the next one you use 1.2. So like in an alternating manner, such that create spaces for people to use when they're working, as whilst you are also capitalizing on plant populations per hectare.
Thank you so much, Rodney, for that one. And maybe you can tell us about the soil types. I don't think we spoke about what kind of soils grow best for butternuts.
Bananas prefer loose soils. So basically, anything from loam to sand loam would do best for butternut. But also, those dark clays and red clays, they can also produce good results, even though they will need good land preparation. That is your reaping, your plowing, and other land preparation implements.
All right. Thank you so much, Rodney. Munia, over to you. Let's speak about fertilization.
Okay, I think before we go to fertilizer, it's also imperative for us to also add the manure aspect. You need a lot of manure, fully decomposed manure for you to actually have what Rodney is saying, those loose soils. So if you're using heavy textured soils, say you have that red clay or that black clay, yeah, you need a lot of manure so that you have that loose space that is saying, so that it can grow freely. It can absorb nutrients. So land preparation is something which is very important when you are doing your butternuts. You need to have the best land prep. So if you have a hard soil pan, it's important to also do a reaping. Then you come with your disc plow and make sure that you have a good loose soil so that you can produce. So Rodney, maybe you can take us through the fertilizer.
All right, no problem. I believe different fertilizer types in Zimbabwe and South Africa, but I'll try to address the things that are important. So now, when you start your butternut crop at planting, by the way, that we can plant it either via seeds or via seedlings. And when we have done it on a quite large scale, that was about 20 hectares, we used the seedlings. Um, Important at planting is your phosphorus. Your crop needs as much phosphorus as possible when you're planting it. Why? Because this is the element that is responsible for root development, and root development is like the beginning of your crop cycle. So once you supply your crop with phosphorus at planting, um, it should suffice the crop requirement for the element actually. So there is no uh, supplementation of phosphorus during the crop cycle. You have to apply 100% of it as transplanting. Here in Zimbabwe, we've got a number of fertilizers that we use. They've got high concentration of phosphorus, the likes of compound C, compound high C, vegetable blend. I don't know what you call them in South Africa or in other country. But here, those are the names that we use. And we also have got straight fertilizers that actually supply phosphorus, the likes of single superphosphate, I believe is also available in South Africa. We've got monoammonium phosphate. We also use those ones at transplanting. But at the same time, we don't have to totally ignore the other elements, the like of nitrogen and your potassium as well. Your crop will need a certain percentage of those at planting. Besides the difference in the names of fertilizers and all, it is known that your butternut will need about 50 kgs of concentrate phosphorus at per hectare. That's the rate that you need to apply. So whatever fertilizer that you have in your area, just make sure that it is able to supply 50 kgs of concentrate phosphorus per hectare to your crop. And all this phosphorus is applied at planting or at transplanting, depending with the route that you've decided to take as a farmer. So from there, from week one, that is week one after either after transplanting or week one after emergence of your seedlings, you now need to feed the vegetative growth of your crop. So how do you feed the vegetative growth now? That's when you come in with your nitrogen based fertilizers. In Zimbabwe, we have ammonium nitrate, which has got 34.5% nitrogen. That's what we use as a top dressing. But in fruit bearing crops like bananas, like watermelons, we don't really encourage use of these fertilizers at high rates because they tend to promote what we call rank growth, which is the vegetative growth of a crop at the expense of fruits. Yet we are not interested in the leaves of the butternut. What we need at the end of the day are the fruits. So you have to use it conservatively. To balance now the nitrogen requirement, we come in with fertilizers that contain both nitrogen and potassium. That is usually from week 2 after transplanting or week 2 after emergence of the seed. From week 2, we use the same fertilizers. Week 2, we use the same fertilizers. Week 3, and we use it at week 4. Usually in Zimbabwe, we use what we call potato top dress, which has got 17% nitrogen and 24% potassium. This allows us to reduce the quantity of nitrogen that we apply to the crop. That is from 35% to 17%, which is like we half the supply. Then at the same time, we are also introducing potassium, which we all know that is responsible for initiating flowering and fruit development. Also, note that potassium is quite important when it comes to weight of your yield. The potassium that is in a fruit is the element that is responsible for absorbing as much water as needed into the fruit, and the water is what we know as an element that constitutes to the weight of the produce. So now, if your crop lacks enough potassium, what will happen is you have very big fruits, but when you put them on the scale, they don't reflect the size. You have a very good big fruit that you assume may probably is 1.6 kgs or so, and then you put it on the scale, it's 1.1 or it's 0.9 kgs. That is not good for you, especially when your market buys per kg, not per pocket or per box, depending on the market, right? So your butternut crop, requires a total of 150 kgs of potassium, of which 30% of it is required at pre-plant. That is, when you are prior to your planting, you need to apply at least 30% of your potassium. That is why here in Zimbabwe we use the compounds. The compound now, when we have our compounds, the high C, it has got already 23% potassium. So when we apply the high C, we are mainly targeting at sufficing the phosphorus need, but at the same time, we are also supplying 23% potassium, which is closely enough to the 30% that is needed for the entire butternut crop. From there now, at flowering now, we come in with higher concentrations of potassium as well, because now that's when the element is more important. That's when it's really needed. So here in Zimbabwe, we've got fertilizers like potassium nitrate, which has got about 45% potassium and I think 13% nitrogen. So we are reducing the nitrate element whilst increasing the potassium element. There's also another fertilizer that is MOP, which is our muriate of potash, which is wholly potassium. There is sulfate of potash, which consists of potassium as well as a bit of sulfur in it. The sulfur is important for maintaining the green pigment on the leaves. It works hand in glove with the magnesium now to maintain that greenish on the crop without necessarily promoting rank growth. So it's important now for your crop to maintain the greenish so that it is able to manufacture as much as millet as possible to feed into the fruits. Also on the nitrogen part, your crop, you realize that it needs a maximum of it should be 130 kgs nitrogen per hectare that it needs during its cycle. So after the application of these basic fertilizers, the potato topdress and the potassium nitrate, if you are not really happy with the size of your fruit or the number of your fruits, or sometimes you notice that your butternut is still producing these little fruits, but the foliage now is turning yellowish. Is like it's giving up now. It's saying the cycle, we are done. We have to close this cycle. It's shutting down. I think that's the proper term, shutting down. Your crop is shutting down. There's a few tricks that you can use to try and revitalize it and elongate the cycle. You can come in with a fertilizer that we call magnesium sulfate. The magnesium and the sulfur, as I mentioned earlier, they are responsible for maintaining the greenish pigment on your crop. It's important that you elongate your crop cycle by at least 2 to 3 weeks so that it can produce enough assimilates, or should I say food, to feed into the newly and growing fruits. And eventually this will lead to high productivity. It will increase your yield in terms of numbers and in terms of weight.
Wow, thank you
Yeah,
so much. Thank you so
so
much,
maybe.
Rodney, for that. You gave us an entire fertilization program. So we appreciate that. Munya, is there anything else you'd like to add on to that?
Yeah, like you were saying, the basic requirement that most farmers need to understand is how much fertilizer do we need? Like if we're looking at NPK, we can break it down as NPK. So we need about 150 kgs of N, which is nitrogen, like you were saying, and we need about 50 kgs P and 150 kgs K. So you need to divide it so that you do split applications, like in most cases. So you need to know what you put as pre-planting, then you divide into three. In most cases, we have three stages, which are very important when you're dealing with K. So you need to put about 30% on pre-planting, then about 30% of K on week 4, so that you also put 30% at flowering, then about 10% that will be left when your fruit sets form, so that you stagger your nutrition. I think it's one of the things which is very important, like you was explaining. So for the layman farmer, sometimes it's difficult to understand. But first things first, you need to also put a good basal. So good basal, others will prefer compound C, which is about 51512. If we're dealing with most fertilizer companies from our side, it's 51512 for compound C. Then there's something called IC, which is more of a double of these. Then there is bulk blend. Bulk blend can be about 12, 22, 22. It all depends with the blender. So there's a whole lot of different basals that you can use for your butternut. So you can also use compound D. There is compound D and there is double D. Compound D in most cases it's 7, 14, 7. Then double D. Rodney, what's double D? It's what.
It's 14, 14, 28, 14.
Yeah, you can also use that for your basal application. So there's a big range, but in most cases, if you're a commercial farmer, it's wiser to use compound C or high C.
Also, Munya,
Maybe that's. Mhm.
the thing with this compound D and compound double D, they are chlorine based fertilizers, and the
Uh,
chlorine is not really good for our vegetables. So whenever we are dealing with horticultural crops, I think it is best and necessary to only deal with the likes of compound high C, compound S. Those fertilizers now they've got a reduced quantity of chlorine, which allows our horticultural crops to absorb as much nutrients as possible from the soil.
Can I
Yeah,
also
that's an important aspect to note. So C and IC remains the best when we're dealing with those basals. But we were just saying for a range, others will also go for IB. I've seen farmers who use IB commercially and they got a very good vegetative growth.
Plus, the other thing that I actually did not mention, one thing that I was supposed to mention at the very beginning of my speech, was the importance of a soil test. So it is
Mhm.
this thing of saying compound C, compound high C, compound S, compound what. This is the rough rule of thumb. Something that is widely accepted, something that is highly expected. I mean, but field to field may have variations, and your field might actually need the compound D that I'm saying is not really good for vegetables because of the elements that is already in the field, what we call like the residual fertilizer. It might be um, in um, necessary for you to use the compound D and actually get the best of yield. And some farmers may even have an excess of the phosphorus that we say we really need at planting, and they may even need to come up with ways that allows their crop to reduce their absorption of the phosphorus. So a soil test is very important. Do a soil sample for field, take the soils to the lab, and you get results that will allow you to come up with a proper fertilizer program that will allow you to get the best of yield from the crop.
Yeah, I think that's the most important aspect before you even adopt any fertilizer program. Having a good sample, then you understand what is in excess and what is in leg. So in most cases, most fertilizer companies they conduct a soil sample and they will give you the results of what's available in your soil so that you can do uh, precision topping up of your fertilizer. So maybe what we recommend most of our farmers here is to conduct a soil sample. A comprehensive one is the best so that you really understand all the characteristics.
All right, thank you guys so much for a well comprehensible fertilization program and the tip as well that before we even stress about these things, that a soil sample is very necessary. Um, Rodney, could you just kindly mute your mic, please?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So I wanted to get back to a planting, guys. You know, some people can complain about seed prices and saying that it's very very expensive, and maybe sometimes there's a rodent problem at the farm and the mice are eating our seeds. Should we also be looking at our seedlings? Is that something that you guys would advise?
Yeah, if you're dealing with hybrids, the best way to propagate is to come up with seedlings. So my recommendation is when you buy expensive seed, like all these hybrid varieties, they come pricey. The breeder will put a price tag which is very high for most upcoming farmers and startup. But if you're a commercial farmer, most commercial farmers, they really understand that the yield is centered on the varieties that they grow. So in most cases, if you want the same uniformity, because sometimes germination can be a problem, and if you want to have a uniform start, you raise your seeds with professional nurseries. So you take your seed to the nursery, you buy a certain variety that you want, and you put it into a nursery. Then when you transplant, you know my days to harvest. Your expected days to harvest can be easily calculated when you're doing transplanting, because you know from the transplanting date to harvest is about 90 days, and you calculate 90 days from the day that you transplant. So automatically it's a bit professional when you're raising your seeds from the nursery. So yeah, in my recommendation is you need to take your seeds to the nursery so that they can be propagated.
Thank you.
Then for some varieties like water, sometimes these ones are cheaper, so it doesn't cost anything for you to plant it directly, because butternut can be planted directly and you can reduce your expenditure. There's an expense that comes by from taking your seeds to the nursery. Sometimes other nurseries they are pricey because you're coming with your own seed and you're giving them to plant for you, and they charge you a price. But if you're really certain you don't have problem with mice or maybe rats, you can just do a direct planting. I don't know, Rodney, what's your recommendation?
If you are doing with hybrids, definitely I would recommend you choose the seedlings. Um, a lot of people would say that it's not practical, but trust me, it is practical. Munya, you came to my farm, you saw the 20 hectares that we had under butternut. I tell you that each and every plant from that field was planted through seedlings. Of course, it comes with a cost. I think we paid about $25 per every thousand, which is around 320, 340 rands per every thousand seed. So you calculate that by 16,000 per hectare, then you multiply it by 20,000, 20 hectares. That's quite an amount. But what are we saving? We are saving Sakata hybrid Pluto, which costs for about 1,000 US dollars per hectare. That is like around 14, 15,000 rands. So it might be laborious. It might be a bit. It might be an additional cost. But what we are saving is more important than the amount that we are losing.
Rodney, please repeat those specs again so that we understand. So if we are planning to plant seedlings, right, we obviously need a lot of hands. So what did you say happened on your farm per hectare? How many people did you use per hectare, and how many seedlings did they plant per hectare?
Um, our 20 hectare farm actually was planted in 5 hectare batches. And to plant 5 hectares, we needed about 30 people, 30 general hand people that we were using. So it's 30 people for 5 hectares. That is an average of 5 people per every hectare to plant about 16,000 plants.
Yeah, so when you go commercial, there are no two ways about it. You need to take it through the nursery so that you don't lose the most important seed, because your seed is your treasure. That's where your genetics lies. So there are no two ways about it. Just go the hard way. It pays off at the end of the day.
Yes, it definitely does, and it takes a shorter time to also harvest your fruits. And guys, now I actually really want us to speak about the diseases. Munya, you're the one who mentioned mildew and that type of fungal diseases. But what other diseases can we anticipate when it comes to butternut, and what are you guys using to mitigate that?
Uh, in most cases, the things that you face is downy mildew, powdery mildew. Those are the most common diseases that are troublesome when you're doing cucumber beets. So you find that in most cucumber beets, those are the common problems. But as well, you just need to be sure about your cells. Sometimes there are things that interfere. You never know. Maybe you might have nematodes. You need to properly understand what you have. But from my side, the major problems that we faced when we're doing production was powdery mildew and downy mildew. Those are the two headaches that we faced. But apart from that, spraying for maybe pests, but diseases are no. It's only mildews.
All right, thank you, Munya, for that one. And what kind of irrigation is best suited for butternut production? Hi, Munya, are you still with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. So the most common one is overhead. Most farmers use sprinklers and maybe pivots. So if you're doing commercial, the best way to go is to use overhead, so that you get the moisture requirements that is needed by a crop to actually reach a very good yield. So in most cases, some farmers they can use drip irrigation. It's still okay, and others who prefer doing flooding. But when it's in the rainy season now, um, your ridges will determine the type of irrigation that you use. So if you're using about 30 to 40 meter raised beds, you need either drip irrigation or overhead. So you use sprinklers, pivots, and drip irrigation. Those are the most common ones. But sometimes in other areas, when you go to areas like Breeds, you go to areas like Mpumalanga, you go to areas like Mutare. Those areas they are hot when it's summer. So sometimes the amount of evapotranspiration is very high compared to what you expect. So you need to irrigate to about field capacity, say about 30 to 40 mils per irrigation cycle. So you need something which gives you a very good coverage. So if you're having pivots, you can do that. Like Rodney, when they were doing their production, they had about 20 hectares all in one. So 20 hectares, they were using pivots. So pivots they control the amount of moisture that gets into the soil, and when it reaches soil capacity or field capacity, they move to the next plant. So my recommendation is, if you're doing commercial, the best way to go is to go um, sprinkler, pivots, or maybe drip irrigation, so that you get the best results from what you expect. So most people tend to fall for flood irrigation when we are doing smallholder production. Maybe you are a startup farmer and you're starting to produce. It's still okay, but you need to come with ridges now, so that there is no leaching. Because when you flood your area, leaching becomes a common problem, because your soil will be suffocated with too much water, and you need a certain level of oxygen and a certain level of of nutrient level. So for you to be able to strike a balance, you need to come up with ridges so that there is no leaching.
Thank you so much, Munia. And now, what I want to do is make this very interactive because Munia and Rodney gave us a lot of information. So, if there's any one of you guys listening here and you would like to ask a question or maybe comment, I think the floor is open. So, you guys can just request to become speakers and ask our speakers anything or make any comments that you guys have when it comes to Butternut Production. So, guys, the floor is officially open. Now let's move on to markets. And how do you guys navigate around that? When is the best price? When is the best time rather for us to get the best price for our butternuts? Munya?
Okay, best price is usually is off season, but off season comes with many challenges now. So maybe you can produce early and you can have a good post harvesting storage facility. So post harvest handling is a key area of concern when you want to sell off season. So you do your 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 production in summer where temperatures are favorable so that you get your maximum yields as possible. So if we say Pluto, for example, is about 35 tons to 40 tons from every hectare. When you produce in summer, those are the temperatures that will allow you to reach maximum yields. So you need to produce in summer and maybe sell in winter if that's the case. But usually the prices are more or less the same, so they will attract you to the market. But the best time to actually get maximum returns is to sell through the winter time.
Thank you, Munya. We have Tutugile here. I think she has a question or comment for us. Hi, Tutugile. Tutugile, are you with us? Okay, probably a network error. Munya, so who are your guys' markets?
Usually we sell on the open market and we supply to the shops. So we supply Pick and Pay, we supply OKs, we supply Bon Marchés. Most of the retailers, those are the ones which gets most of our produce. Then as well, we have an open market in the farm gate. A farm gate, most of these guys can come through to the farm and they can negotiate a price and get the produce from the market. So if we don't have pending orders or orders that come from the retailers, we also supply the other guys who are the wholesalers. Those ones who come and buy in bulk and do prepacks. They just buy from the farm or we just do delivery to the wholesalers. So there's the wholesalers, the open market, and the retailers. Then Rodney had a wider marketing space. Maybe he can explain what it is because he used about 20 hectares. So this guy was more of a large scale commercial farm. So maybe he can explain to the others so that they understand how you can market your produce and the returns that come by.
Rodney?
Um, we really had a huge platform to sell our produce. We were supplying all the Pick and Pay shops in Zimbabwe. We were supplying a huge percentage of the OK shops, Food Lovers Market, Bon Marché. We also had some produce that even went as far as Dubai. So for you now to be able to be taken serious by these markets, there are two things that you have to make sure. You have to make sure that you've got the best produce in terms of quality, and you've got a lot of quantity for you to be taken serious. So now also we're supplying the open market. The guys from the open market, they would even come to our, then they'll go and sell at their own markets as well. So there's this thing that Munya mentioned, the issue of growing off season. It comes with with risks. But eventually, because you're selling when everyone else doesn't have the produce, what it means is you're actually selling at premium. So in our case, we had I would say three major problems. The first one was botrytis. We had a disease called botrytis. It's a fungal infection, and it's very dangerous in the sense that it limits the number of fruits that your plant can produce. What happens is when there is that transition between from the flower to the fruit, you realize that the tiny fruit, the juvenile fruit, it simply turns yellowish, and in a day or two it dies off, and that's it. That means that's 1 point something kgs that you've lost. So now, as a farmer, now you need to be very, 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 very much prepared for that. And the chemical that you need to use for that is a chemical called Amister Top. It's manufactured by Sanjenda, or in other markets you might find it under different names. But what's important is for you to know the components of the chemicals. It actually has got two products. That is the azoxstrobin and difenoconazole. Those two chemicals, those are the ones that are combined to make Amister Top. That was the first problem that we have. And now, when you're applying this chemical, you have to apply it when it's warm. Unlike other agrochemicals that we recommend you to apply as early as possible in the day, this one now it needs you to apply when the sun is a bit up. But the fungal is active when it's warm and a bit windy. So you need to attack it when it's active. That's how you can kill it. Then the other thing was this disease we call gummy stem blight. What happens is your fruits, be it juvenile, be it in their greening stage or even in their maturing stage, they will just start to produce some gummy. You just see some gummy coming out of the fruit from nowhere. And in its extreme case, the fruit will just look as if it's boiled or something. And when the food is really, really affected, you can even smell rotten butternuts in the field that is still very, very active. So what you need to do now is to come in with a chemical that we call proxanil. Here in Zimbabwe, it's supplied by Polarchem, and it consists of two chemicals as well. The first one is propamocab, and the other one is cymozacnil. Those two chemicals, those are the ones that are combined to come up with proxanil. So that's a second problem that we faced. Is this one? This challenge now is promoted by wet, cold environments. When it's wet, when it's raining, then the temperatures are not as high as they are in October or in September or in November. So now that's when this disease develops. But also at the same time, we know that a lot of people are not producing butternuts because they're afraid of that problem as well. And when you go to the market now, the price is at premium. So you may need just to take the risk, find a way to get rid of the disease, and you get the best of produce. Then the third problem that we got was low yields themselves. Butternut is a summer crop. Basically, what it means is it needs a lot of high units to produce as much yield as possible. But now, when you produce it off season, when there isn't as much heat as possible, what it simply means is you're going to experience low yields, lower than expected. But now your strategy will be on the marketing price again. So now you might get maybe 35 tons, maybe 30 tons from the expected 40 to 60 tons. You get 30 tons. It's still okay because now when you go to the market, the price is probably 150% or 200% higher than the price that you're supposed to get if you had grown the crop in summer when everyone else had the produce. So it's very important for you to time your produce. Either if you decide to go into summer, that means you have to base on volumes. You have to have as much volumes as possible because sometimes the profit per unit might be very minimal. So you need to capitalize on quantities. Then if you want to capitalize on pricing itself, you might need to decide to grow it off season and sell at premium.
Yeah, then the other aspect that most farmers need to put into consideration is to do um, practices against fruit fly. You know, fruit fly is a common problem to most farmers. Most of these farmers, they are caught unaware. So you just wake up one morning and you find that most of your butternuts, they'll be wilting, and some of them will do that yellowish color, and that note will show you there was the presence of fruit fly. So in most countries, they use chemicals with phenthone as the active ingredient. So in other countries, lebicid is still there. It's been manufactured by Bayer. So if you go to Malawi, Kenya, Zambia, lebicid is still available on the market. But in other countries, it was banned. But if you can still get anything with phenthone, you can still get away with it. Do routine sprays and you know.
We have a question by Zazo.
Thanks, guys, for the wonderful insights around butternut farming. I tried butternut farming and won most of the battles. Yield was great, pest control was great, and we actually got very good fruit. But the biggest challenge that we faced was we had like some porcupines that decided to actually feast on our butternut, and that became a huge challenge for us. I don't know if you have experienced something similar, and what you would actually do to control something like that. Because I guess with the insects and all those things, you can actually spray insecticides, but porcupine is a different kind of challenge. So I don't know how, if you have ever experienced something like. Those they're like a medium-sized rodent with quills, like they
Hedgehog.
no, they're actually what how can I describe? They're actually like a
I think I know Nungu, and
yeah.
to be honest with you, my brother, I've never experienced such a problem in Butternut,
Okay.
and yeah, probably I'm not the right person to advise on ways to mitigate that.
Okay.
Yeah, but in most cases, if you meet challenges like that, you can use traps. You go to these chemical shops and ask about traps. Like for the rats and the mice, most farmers they go for traps. They use traps so that something like baiting. I don't know.
Yeah, there should be something that you can use to bait them. And I think the best guys to advise you would be your wildlife people in the area. They should have a way of at least either bait them or scare them away.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, you just find something that is environmental friendly, so that you'll be in harmony with nature. Killing sometimes is not the best way to go about it. You find ways to trap them.
And
Google,
because
maybe
maybe let me ask another question, since I don't see anyone wanting to ask questions. Let me ask another question around the post
okay.
harvest storage. I guess aspect of it. What was your strategy in terms of that? Because I guess one of the things is you don't want the butternut to actually lose a lot of moisture. So what was your strategy in terms of storing the harvested butternut?
In our case, usually we had a ready market that was ready to take whatever produce that we're harvesting from the field. But another thing that we did to ensure that the produce gets to the market in its best form, like you mentioned, the issue of losing moisture, we actually used wax. There is a wax type that is used by citrus farmers, people who export oranges, natches, lemons. If you want to export them to as far as Europe, as far as Middle East, chances are high that when they get there, they will be flaccid. They would have lost that turgidness that they're supposed to have naturally. So what they is got a special wax that they use. They dip the fruits into the water that is treated with the wax, and it actually closes the pores that the water from the fruit uses to escape. So we use the wax to reduce loss of water. Then the second thing that we did was to clean the fruits with cloth that were treated with benomil. Benomil is a post-harvest fungicide. So what happens with this chemical is if there is any fungal diseases that is developing in the fruit, and usually the diseases that happens in the fruits, they are responsible for the decaying of the fruit. So if you apply this benomil, it stops every fungal infection that is happening within the fruit without necessarily making the food poisonous or danger for consumption by customers. So we waxed our produce to minimize loss of moisture. Then the second thing that we did was using the benomil so that we ensure that there is no fungal activity that is happening within the fruits.
Yeah, then as well, you need to keep the stem. You know, when you are reaping, don't cut off the stem, because most of these post harvesting pathogens, they enter through those bruises. So you make sure that your fruits don't get as much bruises as possible. So it's important to also use the benomil and everything. But yeah, Rodney, from your fruits, you kept those stems, just like pumpkins.
Yes, yeah,
It's
you need to keep that probably you can say the knob that connects the fruit to the stem is very important to keep.
Yeah, just like pumpkins, you then elongate the shelf life when it's there, but when you detach it off, the shelf life will go down.
Also,
One last
I think
time.
storage where you store your produce is also important. It should be well aerated, and they shouldn't be sitting directly on the floor. Um, I know it's a very basic thing, but if you don't put it into consideration, it may contribute to losses as well.
Yeah, and very good ventilation, so that moisture and fungal infection doesn't start again.
Thank you guys so much. Guys, the floor is open. So if you guys have questions for our amazing, knowledgeable farmers, please, now is your chance. Just request to be a speaker and fire it away. So the floor is open. This is the last time I'm opening up the floor. And I just have two more questions for you guys. What is your expected yield per hectare in terms of tons? What can we expect if we are playing it by the book?
The rough rule is um, 40 tons. If you're doing a cucubit budget, I advise you use 40 tons as your targeted yield. You understand that with 40 tons, you break even at around 19.5 to 20 tons. So that is 100% profit from the crop. But the coming in of improved varieties now is allowing farmers to get yields as high as 80, as high as 90 tons. So how do you do this now? If you've got a variety like Pluto, which is capable of giving you fruits that have got an average weight of maybe 1.4 to 1.6 kgs per fruit, and each crop gives you 6 kilos, six fruits. I mean, 6 fruits that are weighing probably an average of 1.5 kgs. We are talking of 9 kgs per plant. And if you have got 10,000 plants per hectare, already you're at 90 tons. So it's very practical for you to get those kind of yields. But as I mentioned earlier on, you need to be very, 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 very careful on disease control. For instance, the botrytis that I mentioned earlier on, you need to be very, 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 very careful, because it's one disease that can actually disallow you to reach the 6 fruit per plant target. Then the second thing is for you to maintain the greenish pigment on your crop that will allow it to feed these fruits so that they can have the weight that we are saying, an average of 1.5. Otherwise, if you fail to manage those things, you may not be able to reach those kind of yields. But a yield of 40 tons is very practical, and it gives a very good profit that is 100%. I think there are very few business ideas in this world that will give you 100% profit in just 3.5 to 4 months.
Yeah, you are very right. In most hybrid varieties, you can get excess of 40 tons. But it also depends on your heat units, like Rodney was saying the other time. If you produce in an area with good high heat units, you can get as high as 50 to 60 tons, depending on the heat units. If you compare production in Lanceria versus breeds, you find that most of the farmers in breeds, they will get a bigger yield compared to farmers in areas around Joburg. Then if you're in Zimbabwe, if you compare someone who's producing in Bema Valley, or maybe versus someone in Marondera Beatrice area, someone in Bema Valley can get as twice the yield that you get in these temperatures with average temperatures. So temperature also plays a pivotal role in cucumber beet production. So if you have very high temperatures in areas like Wonde Valley, you can get twice the yield that you get in other areas. So heat units is one of the aspects that plays the bigger difference.
Thank you so much for shedding some light on that, guys. And I wanted to speak to you guys about the market sizes. Obviously, markets differ in terms of what they want and what they expect. But you guys have sold to supermarkets and fresh produce markets. What are the sizes that they are looking for?
I didn't get the question quite well.
Hi, Rodney. I was asking what sizes are they looking for in the fresh produce markets?
Okay, the fresh produce market usually is looking at fruits that are between 1 and 1.5 kgs. Those are the fruits that are needed. The fruits that are beyond 2 kgs, usually they are considered for processing.
And also one other thing to notice, there is a difference in the market uptake. Some of these markets, they don't consider size. So if you're considering the open market, they take all the sizes. So sometimes it can be an opposite. In an organized market, you can get those 1 to 1.5 kgs, but in an unorganized market, they want the biggest sizes. So they'll pay more on the bigger sizes and less on the mediums to the small ones. So the grading system is like small will fetch the lowest price, then medium will take the medium price range. In the premium can be paid on these very big ones in the open market. Say for example, if you're dealing with the barring guys, they want something very big. And when you go to the organized market now, it's a different case altogether. They want medium to small. Then for the export market, they want something very small compared to what we're getting. So maybe you can go to as little as 800 grams from a fruit set. So 800 grams to a kg can be the peg for the export market. They want something small from the butternut to the baby butternut. So it's more of a specialized market which wants something small to medium. Then the difference comes with the type of market in question.
Yeah, that's very true, Munya. The type of market is very important. You would understand that there are some markets, or there's some areas in the country where people look at big bananas and they believe that these processing, they are not sweet. You remember this thing that happens when companies introduced processing varieties that produce bananas that are as as big as 6 kgs, as big as 8 kgs. So now there are some people that actually have got this perception that when they see a big butternut, they just assume that this one is not sweet. It's meant for processing, and now it becomes difficult for one to sell that one on a fresh market basis. But either way, I think market uptake or market preference, they differ from area to area. I'll give an example of tomatoes. Here in Zimbabwe, farmers in Harare and other places, they prefer round tomatoes. But if you go to Manicaland, I understand that people there, they want semi-round to jam tomatoes. So the thing of market now, it depends with the type of market, the perception of the buyers, and for export markets, it's a bit easier because they are very, very specific. They'll tell you that we need a fruit that is between 0.8 to 1 kg, and that's it.
Yeah, so if you're thinking of considering export markets, you need to go with small-sized fruits. Then if you are going for all the other markets, you can do medium to large so that you can maximize on returns. So the grading process can allow you to sell the small ones on the export market, then the mediums and the extra large on the open market. So now there's a market for everyone. So when you want to sell now, you do your grading. So your grading will come with your small butternuts. That one will be for maybe Europe and Middle East and all these other countries. But then when you are considering our local farmers or our local consumers, they believe bigger is better. Bigger has always been better. If you're producing any other produce that goes for different markets, others will want it tender, others will take whatever comes from the field. So now it's the perception, like Ron was explaining. The perception is all that matters. But in Africa, bigger is better.
That's very true. In Africa, size is king.
Yes, I agree with you guys on that one. That's why it's very important also for you as a farmer to just do your research when it comes to markets because regions differ as well. Guys, I do have a question for from Pepper Nexus Agri. They sent me a DM because they couldn't get through. They wanted to know what is the best time to water butternuts? Is it in the morning or afternoons?
Um, it depends with the type of irrigation that you're using. If you're using overhead irrigation, that is your sprinkler or your pivot, whatever that puts water on the leaves, I advise that you apply your water during in the morning or during the day, such that by day end, when by night, the leaves are as dry as possible, because now we don't want them to remain wet for a longer time, because that's how infections find it easy to penetrate into your crop. But if you're using drip irrigation, you can irrigate any time of the day, definitely. But just make sure that your crop is not stressed during the hottest hours of the day.
Yeah, and you don't go overnight with water on your leaves. That's what's very important. So like you're saying, if you're using drip is fine. There's no water that gets into contact with the leaves, unless there are leakages here and there in your food. So the most important aspect is that you don't have to have water on your leaves. So that's how most of these diseases brew.
All right, and he or she. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a he or she, but they are asking if it's. Oh yeah, they're asking about the disease. So they're saying the disease whereby a butternut cracks and release a gummy secretion. What chemical can be used, and is there any way to avoid it? And are there any natural remedies?
Uh, the cracking part now is usually as a result of maybe I would say two things, as per to my knowledge. The first one is inconsistent watering. when you're irrigating not enough water during the growth of the fruit development stage, what happens is your crop will decide to form probably medium to smaller fruits, judging from the amount of water that is getting. Then at maturing, if you keep on irrigating or if you increase now your water, what happens is there is too much water in the fruit that is being exerted to the walls of the fruit, and eventually it leads to cracking. By nature, the butternut, when it cracks, it has to produce a bit of gummy, but not necessarily the disease type. So it could be an issue of inconsistent watering and probably failing to adapt to the water requirements of the crop stages when you're raising your crop. So definitely the cure would be to understand how much and when your crop needs the water, right? So if you sort that out, I think you would have avoided the cracking part. Then if the gummy now is promoted by the fungal infection that I have mentioned earlier on, the chemical that we found to be effective. Here in Zimbabwe, we've got one we call proxanil, and it has got two chemical compounds. One of them is propamocab, then the other one is cymozacnil. Those two chemicals are combined to form what we call proxanil. That's what we have used to keep the disease. And when you're applying this chemical, make sure that the chemical gets to the fruits. So you may need to come in with implements like the mist blower, the one that blows a lot of air and raises leaves so that the chemical can actually penetrate and go to the fruits. But before that even occurs, there is a need to just apply your preventative chemicals, your fungal preventative sprays, the likes of copper oxchloride, the likes of Mangozeb or Diethen M45, or the likes of your Bravo or your chlorothalonil. Those kind of chemicals, you just apply them on routine so that you avoid the occurrence of these diseases. Then on the natural cure, as the question mentioned, it's I find it very difficult for open field farming because this gummy disease is promoted by um, cold wet conditions. So you may not have the power to control the temperature, uh, or the power to stop the rain. But if it's just in winter
Yeah.
and there are no rains, probably you may need to consider the type of irrigation. Probably you need to avoid overhead irrigation and use drip irrigation, as Munya was mentioning. So yeah, probably that could be the solution. But if it's a matter of your crop is in the rain season now, it becomes a challenge. You may need to maximize on chemicals and all.
Yeah, or maybe what we can recommend is the farmer is to maintain his irrigation schedule. Maybe water between 25 to 40 millimeters of water per week. So if he can maintain a certain irrigation schedule, it means he can avoid things like inconsistent watering. So when you have inconsistent watering now is when you get these all kinds of problems pertaining to cracking and splitting when there's a sudden change. And as well, for the cold temperatures, Rodney was using something very, very good. He was using a mulch. And what you do now when your temperature suddenly falls, you can put another mulch on top of your fruit so that there is mulch underneath the fruit and mulch on top of the fruit so that you actually come up with a strategy to improve your heating. So mainly, it's more to do with low temperatures. When you get these low temperatures, they will crack a lot, and that's what really happens when temperatures are not on your side.
Thank you so much, guys. We have another question here from Mpumelelo Ncube. He's like, hi, my question is, how can you secure market so you don't lose harvest, and which markets gives faster returns? And then he asked another question and said, how to proper harvest so that your butternuts are sweet?
I think there is no alternative for quality. When you want to guarantee a certain market, you need to produce the best quality that no one can match. So when you produce the best quality, you can guarantee any type of market. And quality you can sell to anyone. So first things first, you need to come up with the best fertilizer regime and the best spraying program, so that you don't get low quality fruits. When we are affected by things like fruit flies, sometimes you can get away with it, but the overall quality that you get at the end of the day is not very impressive. You get all sorts of spots and marks. So post harvesting comes into play. How you present your produce. Are you doing pre-packs? Are you doing bulk supplies? All those things, they will contribute to the overall quality of your produce. I don't know, maybe Rodney has something to add on.
I think you've mentioned all the important aspects when it comes to securing a market. Another thing probably that you would need to do, if the environment allows you, it's best that you have got pre-signed agreements with your intended markets, so that you tell them that, guys, come on, come October, come November, I'm going to supply you with so much quantity of butternut at this kind of a price. So that allows you now, whenever you are doing your production, you already know that come to maturity stage, my product is gone. Then there was an issue, I think, about the sweetness of the fruit. I think the best time for you now to
Yes.
harvest your fruit is when you notice that the knob is starting to dry off. That's when the crop has lost all the unnecessary needed water, and the sugars are at their best level.
Thank you so much, Rodney. Munya, we have a question specifically for you from uh, Peng Black Agronomist. She wants to know,
Mhm.
she wants actually you to clarify on the Benomil being used as a post-harvest fungicide, and what method of application can we apply it post-harvest?
Uh, I think what you can do, like Rodney was explaining about the drying cloth, when you dip your cloth into your Benomil, then you wipe your fruits. I think that's the best method that you can use. It's not like application as spraying or maybe drenching. It's more to do with the wiping of the final fruit set. When you're doing your packaging now, maybe you're doing your pre-packs or your small sacks. You take your Benomil, and you dip your cloth into the Benomil. Then you wipe off your fruit sets. um Rodney, I think you can explain more about this. um how to get the base cover for Panama.
So as you harvest your butternut, I'm sure you can all agree with me that it's not as clean as it is when you see it on the market. So now, when you are cleaning it in the field or in the packing shed, you can actually use a cloth that you constantly dip in Benomil, so that as you are cleaning the whatever dirt that might be on the fruit, you are also applying the Benomil. Uh, that's what we used on our produce. I think we did that to in excess of 800 tons um, of produce using that method. But other people that are a bit sophisticated, like for instance, people with citrus packhouses, they have got a special unit that they use to apply their wax. You can actually incorporate your Benomil into that system, and also use it to apply to the fruits. So what happens is the fruits will be carried on a belt, on a conveyor belt. And it passes through a certain point where the mists of chemicals are applied to the fruits. So you can actually incorporate your Benomil into that mist, and it's applied in the fruit. and there's an area where there's a wind blowing machine that is blowing a lot of wind so that it dries off the fruit, because if you pack the fruit that is wet now, it promotes post harvest rotting. So if you've got that kind of implement on your farm or nearby, you can use it to apply the benomil. But if you don't have, it doesn't mean that's the end of the world, because still you can even come in with the cloth method.
And one thing that we need to teach most of our farmers is whenever you're doing this post-harvesting handling, make sure there is no water contact with your final produce. So there's a certain farmer in British, he actually did a good harvest and lost about 80% of his yield to water. So they used water to clean off the butternut, and they got watermarks and fungal infections. So most of the butternuts, they were turning green, and the other ones were developing watermark. So after harvesting, the recommendation is, please don't put water near your butternuts, because you end up losing on the most important part. So you do a good you do a good production all the way. Then after all has been said and done, you take your butternut and 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 and, and dip it in water. Don't use water to clean off butternuts. It's a horror. That's what we call horror, like a wrong turn.
Thank you. Yeah. Pepper Nexus Agri has another question. This is the last question. They are asking, what is the impact, negative or positive, does a rocky soil have on butternuts?
Rocky soils are actually good for butternut. I've noticed this in my field. There are areas that were a bit rocky, and when you plant it, they grow very, very, very fast, and they produce very, very, very well. Like I said, butternuts need well aerated soils, and rocky soils um, usually produce that, unless if it's the rocky type that we have got a parent rock underneath that is less than 30 centimeters from the topsoil, and there is difficulties in root penetration and all. But if it is the manageable stones and all, I think it's actually the best soils for the butternut.
Yeah, yeah, and also aeration is at peak when you're using these rocky areas, because you have a lot of aeration that comes by. So just like when you do your manure, you are trying to improve your aeration and your organic structure. So yeah, you can go ahead and do a planting when it's not super rocky.
Thank you so much, guys, for wow. You guys have given us a textbook pretty much, and that concludes our questions for tonight. I think I don't see any questions here pending, and I've tried my best to read all the questions that I've received via the DM. So, yeah, this brings us to the end of our session for Farm Spaces. Speakers, do you guys have any parting words? Where can one find you guys if we have more questions? Munia?
My best recommendation for farmers has always been the same. Age is nothing but a number. So you might be young, but the passion is what carries the farming venture forward. So if you're passionate, you are able to reach greater heights. So if you look at me and Rodney, we are below 30. But we are doing production and we are helping farmers grow. So age is nothing but a number. So wherever you are, you have the passion and the drive to go forward. So my words to everyone is, let's push. There are about 800 million hungry stomachs that needs food. So the world is food insecure. So whenever you produce something, just know there's a market out there which is willing to take your produce.
Thank you. And you guys are doing so well. We are extremely, extremely proud of you guys. And where can we find you, Munia? Let's say I'm not satisfied. I really need to know so much about Butternut Production. Can I DM you?
Yes, it's open for business. We are here to help Africa grow.
Thank
You
you.
know,
Thank you guys.
most of the information is in books. But if you cannot read the book, you can consult someone who is who has taken time to go through the books. Knowledge is something that we need to share so that we make this world a better place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for allowing us to do that. So guys, you've heard it here first. Munya is saying please slide into his DM for Butternut Production. Rodney, any parting words from your side? Where can we find you?
Guys, it's been wonderful. The session was brilliant. I just want I just want to tell you this. It's very important for one to accept that there are certain things that we don't know, and it's very important for one to accept that there are certain people who know more than what I think I already know. So, the best way that we can grow is by um, willing or being prepared to learn from other people's experiences and their knowledge. Whenever you listen, you gain something rather than when you are talking. So the reason I believe the reason that I have achieved the little things that I've achieved so far in farming, probably even this banana thing that we're talking about, is because I knew that there are certain people that know better than me, and even some things that I thought that I already knew, I would even still ask just for just to confirm, make sure that I'm getting it right. And I tell you that I don't regret doing that. So it's very important for one to be willing to learn, and it's very important for one to understand and know that there are certain people who know better than them. With that, you never go wrong. For those who would want to contact me, those who think maybe they can learn more out of these space sessions, you are free to DM me, and then if you need my number, we can take it from there.
Yeah, and we'll try after the session to also provide growing tips like we were sharing everything about production. Sometimes we just do a thread. I think Rodney can do his thread and I can do mine so that we combine ideas. You know, teamwork is all that matters. So when we combine ideas, team effort, we get the best results. So it's all about teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more. And parting words, what I can say is, in doing we learn. So don't be afraid to try. You know, no one started by walking. You crawl, then you start to walk so that you can run. So for us to reach greater heights, let's start by crawling. We walk leaps and bounds. So thank you everyone for your time. It was very interesting. Thank you, Gugu, for hosting us.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you so much to everyone who joined us. We are really appreciative. We are so happy and we are proud. I'm proud and I am so blessed that farmers are as selfless as they are to come here and share information with all of us so that we can grow. So we really appreciate it. Appreciate it and we're inspired. So, guys, please stay tuned to Munya and Rodney's statuses as they are going to also make threads about this. So, yeah, guys, that is it for me. Good night. We will convene again next week, Monday, on Farm Spaces. And thank you so much